Hello everyone and welcome back to another Blender modeling tutorial. Today we're going to be making a sink to match this modern tap we made the other day. So if you want to know how to make this modern tap, I'll leave the link on a card in the top right hand corner and also in the description of this video. So make sure to check that out if that interests you. First thing I'm going to need to do is left click File and we're going to press Save As. Now I'm going to change this from modern tap here to tap and sink. There we go. And now these are two separate files. So there's one which is just the tap on its own and one which is going to be my tap and my sink. Now I'm going to left click my main tap here and just press G, Z, and then I'll just move it up. There we are. Now I'm going to press Shift and then A, and over mesh I'll click cube, bring it down so it's just under my tap. About there should do, and I will scale it on the x-axis by pressing S and then X, and I'm going to edit this in edit mode. So press tab to get into edit mode, free to enter face select, and select this face, G and then Y, move it across the y-axis, and what I'm doing here is essentially marking out how big I want my basin to be. So maybe about here, and then I'll press A to select all, G and then Y. You'll see what I'm doing in a minute. About there should do. And I'll press G and then Z. That should be deep enough, maybe a little bit more. Then what I'm going to do is press A and then press S and then X. So I'll scale it up on the x-axis, be a little bit more S and X, and I'll bring this a tad bit forward with G and Y. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. So now what I'm going to do is press tab and then enter object mode. Then I'm going to right click with my object selected, set origin to geometry, just to make it all nice and organized again. Now I'm going to press Shift and then D and duplicate my object. As you see, a new cube has been created called cube 001, and I'm going to name that sink just by double clicking it in this panel here. And as for this one, I'm going to call this one domain, which we're going to use in a later tutorial. I'm just going to hide that from all of these just by pressing that camera and the eye symbol, and that will mean it won't show up in render. Now back to this is going to be our sink, so I'm going to press tab and enter edit mode, and since we're still in face select mode, don't need to change anything. I'm just going to select this top face, press X and press faces, and there we go. Now we've got our sink here. Now back in object mode, I'm going to go over to my modifier properties, add modifier, and I'm going to click solidify. If I zoom in here, you can see that it's added an extra layer, but we need to make it a bit bigger than that. And we're going to change our offset to 1 rather than -1, so it goes out the way, and we will increase this thickness here. We are going to edit it when it's done, so you don't need to worry too much, but I'll focus on just getting one of these sides up to scratch. So about there should do, so I'll round that to 0.3. Yeah, perfect. Now all we need to do is click on this drop down and press apply. Now when I enter tab into edit mode, you see that these are now officially part of the mesh, if you like. Now for the next step, I'm going to enter face select mode with 3, and I'll select this face here, G and then Y, and I'll bring it out a bit more. I'm going to more or less even these up here, but I'm not really too fussed. I'm going to do the same here. This one's going to be a bit different. Select that face and I'll press G and Y, and we can move it out to about there. There we go. This is starting to look a bit more like a sink. I'm also going to select my bottom face, G and Z, just to bring it a little bit more down. The design for this sink is going to be just this simple cube shape. I'm not going to round off the edges with bevel or anything like that. So I'm just going to go straight in and add a plug hole. So I'll select this top face here, and I'm going to right click and I'll press subdivide. Then I'm going to press I to go in like this, and I'll press S and then Y. Because it's a flat surface, we don't really need to worry about this too much, so that should do nicely. Scale it in a tad more. Now we're going to inset it again, so just press I and I'll bring that in, and again press S and Y to kind of eat a bit more. Perfect. Then with those faces selected, I'll press right click, loop tools, and circle. I need to fix that up, so I'll press S and then X. And we can press S and then Shift Z just to scale that up a bit more. S and Y, brilliant. I'm then going to press S and X just a little bit more. And I'll press I again to inset, S and X to kind of even that out. S to scale, and about there should do for now. Now what I'm going to do is press E, and then it will automatically lock to the Z axis, but if it hasn't, just press Z, and I'm going to bring it down like this. So it's around just above here. You could turn this into a drain system if you wanted, but I'm not too fussed about that. Okay, so now we've done that, we're going to need to even up this circle of the plug hole a little bit more. As you can see, it's a little bit wonky in some places. So So to do that, I'm going to press Alt left click on this face, and that will select all the faces in that loop. Then I'll right click, go to the loop tools and press circle. Then I'll press S and then X. Now you can see that's looking a lot more even. You can scale it up by pressing S and then Shift Z. Scale it up a tad more. S and then X. Yeah, that's looking a lot better now. Now I'll press Tab and enter object modes. And we're going to add a modifier over to subdivision surface. And at first it's going to create this mess, but we can fix that by just going and adding in some mean crease. So I'll press Tab and enter edit mode, and I'm going to press A since most of these are going to be chosen. I'll then press Control and I'll unselect all of those there. As you can see, that's unselected all those edges. We're going to deal with that a bit more manually. As for the bottom here, I'm going to turn on our X-ray. I'm going to press Shift to unselect that face. Make sure none of the faces I want selected aren't selected, but that looks perfect to me. The ones that are selected are highlighted orange, just in case you're confused. And now I'm going to turn off my X-ray, and over here in Item under Transform, turn my mean crease to 1. Now you can see that our plug hole is looking a little bit more circular, but still not perfect. So I'm going to enter edge select mode by pressing 2 in the keyboard, and I'll press Alt left click on this edge here to select this edge loop, and I'll turn the mean crease to 1. Turn on X-ray, and I'll press Shift Alt here, and I'll need to press it a few times since it's not registered as a proper loop, and then I'll press 1. I'll increase my subdivisions 2, back into my object mode, right click, shade smooth, then under object data properties, scroll down, turn on auto smooth. Turn off X-ray, and there we are. So now when you zoom in, you can see that it's looking a lot nicer. I'm going to tab back into edit mode because now we're going to need to add some materials, and there will be a few more things we will need to do inside of edit mode. So sorry, I'll come back into object mode, and I'm going to click this viewport shading so we can have a little look at what materials we're making. Down in material properties, I'll click plus new. I'm going to make this a relatively reflective material, so I'll change the roughness down to about 0.25. Everything else will be left the same. It's not a metallic material, and base color should be fine as is. If I zoom back in there, can be a little bit difficult to see, so we're going to go back into our viewport shading temporarily, and I'll press tab and enter edit mode. As you see, I've turned off my overlays, so I'll just press this button to show them again. And back in face select mode, I'm going to hold down Alt and select this face loop. Then back in my material properties, I'll press this plus icon. I'm not going to create a new material. I'm going to use this metal tap I've used, which is just to run down the settings for those of you who are not following along for the whole series. Base color is left at default, metallic is set to 1, and roughness to 0.1. And that are all the settings you need to change. Now we're going to press assign. Then when we enter viewport shading, you can see we now have this metal circle. I'm now going to press tab and enter edit mode again, and with going into edge select mode with 2 in the keyboards, I'm now going to press alt and then left click on this loop here, and I'll turn my mean crease to 1 like that. Now that should look a lot more circular. Yeah, much better. Finally, back in face select mode, go back into this viewport. I'll need to turn on my X-ray so I can see it, which is just this button here, and I'll just press Alt and then I'll select this edge. I'm going to click on my metal tap again in material properties and just press assign. I'm also going to select these faces here, and I'll click on metal tap and click assign. Now as I go back into viewport shading, turn off my X-ray and go into object mode, pressing tab, you'll see I've now got a metal plug here. It will obviously look a lot nicer in the render preview once I set up some lighting. Now press tab and enter edit mode, and I'm going to press my X-ray on again, and I'll press alt left click on this, and I'm going to press shift D. Then I'm going to right click, then right click again, separate, selection. Now I'll press tab to enter object mode, and now you'll see I've got my sync 1. Now that's going to be my plug, so I'll just call this plug. Then I'll press tab into edit mode. I'm going to alt left click my edges by pressing 2 to go into edge select mode. Then I will press F. I'm going to do the same on the bottom, so I'll press alt left click this bottom edge loop, make sure X-ray is on for this, press F, and now I'm going to press I, scale S and then Y, then I'll press E and then Z, just to give that more of a plug shape. Now I'm going to go back into object mode and I select my plug. Now with my plug selected, I'll press right click, set origin to geometry. I'm going to quickly show you something, so I'll press G and then Z to bring it up, and if I press R and then Y to rotate on the Y axis, you can see it's now got a little indent. So it could use some work, but I'm not going to worry about that too much today, since I'm just kind of trying to show you what you can do. If you wanted to have the plug removed, that's what you could do. Now to finish off, I will press tab and enter edit mode again. 3 to enter face select, and I'll select this top face. Press I to inset, to around there. Then I'll start scaling manually, so press S and then Y, S and X, S and Y, S and X, S and Y, once more, S and X, S and Y, and that should be good. Then all I need to do is press E and then Z, and I'll tab into object mode, and I'll have a look in the material preview. You can see it's created a plug. Want to add a bit more depth, I can press G and then Z, and I can bring it down a tiny bit, but it's just below the plug. That's optional though, completely up to you. And now that's pretty much it. If I go into viewport shading here and go into Eevee, I'll show you what you can do with some of the lighting. So here's a basic lighting setup I made, and this is kind of what it'll look like when it's all lit up. I'm not going to go over how to light your scene today, as those will be made in separate tutorials in the future. However, there will be plenty of content on YouTube which you can find just by searching, so make sure to check out some stuff like that on YouTube, and I'm sure that will help you out. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and in the next video I'm going to be going over how we can make this tap run and then put a water simulation into the sink, which is why we made that domain earlier. So if that interests you, make sure to subscribe and press the notification bell if you want to be notified when that video is made. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.